Hey Pascal, this is Panther Nation. I'm Connor Hibbett.
And I'm Gage Laswell.
Football team put up a touchdown. So,
they did.
Yeah,
they
they're improving. I don't care who it's against. That's an improvement.
I was at that game too. I witnessed that.
Who scored?
I don't know. It was off of a pass. So.
Oh, okay. I heard it was a really good pass too.
It was. Yeah. No, he was wide open too.
Yeah, good call. We play this week at North Crowley at 7:30. Right now, North Crowley is 5th in the district. Fun fact, they've actually scored exactly the same amount of points as they've given up. They've scored 88 points and given up 88 points. So, fun fact. Mm-hmm. And then on the 3rd of November, we play at Lamar, who's 1-2 in district right at this moment. And then the last game of the season, we play at home on the 10th versus Bowie. So we'll get into those games next week and the week after that. But right now, North Crowley, they're 1-2 in district. We'll see what happens in this game. Hopefully we can come away with the win and get a win this year. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Volleyball last night lost to Arlington 3-1. Arlington is 2nd in district. Right now, Pascal is 24-14 overall in volleyball. They play this Friday night at home at 6:30. So hopefully we can get a win against Lamar. So we're 6-6 in district right now. We're currently 5th in district, same place as North Crowley is in football in district. So hopefully if we can go on a winning streak in volleyball, maybe we could make the playoffs for volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
How about this past weekend in college football?
Oh, there were a lot of blowouts and upsets in that game.
Yeah. You want to wait till later and get to NBA first? Yeah. We'll get to college football later. Oh my gosh, what a weekend! This is the craziest week I've ever seen in college football. But Gage, what do you have for us for NBA?
Well, the NBA season is officially here. Right now, here are the number 1 teams in both conferences. We have Cleveland holding on with a record of 1-0 in the Eastern Conference, and we have the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference, also 1-0. And my team, the Dallas Mavericks, are currently 3rd. They haven't played a game yet, but they will if their first game is against the Hawks at home, which is going to be a good game, I think. So that's it. Oh,
when is the game?
I think it's next Wednesday.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of which,
and then college basketball starts November 10th.
Yeah, 1 like equals 1 prayer. I feel sorry for the Boston Celtics having
Gordon Hayward. He went to my favorite college basketball school, Butler University.
Yeah.
Go Butler Bulldogs.
What? Okay, so what happened is I think Kyrie Irving. So Gordon Hayward cut to the basket. Kyrie Irving threw him an alley-oop. He jumped up. I think he landed on someone's back, and his ankle was under his knee. And what happened is his knee went over his ankle.
Oh,
so we
not as bad as that Louisville player got injured a few years ago. But
actually, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no, yeah,
that was really a bad.
Yeah, no.
But I feel for Celtic fans.
Yeah, no. But the worst thing was it was away, so they had to fly him over to Boston, which is I feel 1 like equals 1 prayer. Let's just.
Breaking news: the Boston Celtics won't have a win yet this year.
Actually, yeah, you're right. And
0-1. It doesn't matter. That's the NBA. You're gonna have a team go on a 5-game winning streak.
And look who is dead last in the Western Conference: Golden State Warriors.
Woo-hoo.
Your defending
Never thought
champions.
You'd say that.
Yeah,
it's 1 game.
What?
I bet they finished 1st or 2nd.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think like the Houston Rockets. I think they're good where they are. They're undefeated right now, and so are the Cleveland Cavaliers. Their first game was against the Boston Celtics, which didn't end so well with Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
NBA.
That's NBA.
And then last night we saw the Yankees beat Houston coming back from 4 down, 6-4. And so now Houston's and the Yankees are tied at 2 games apiece.
I was watching SportsCenter, and I saw the highlights. The Yankees made a huge comeback.
Yeah. So now that game's tied. That series is tied at 2 games apiece.
Let's see.
And the Dodgers are up over the Cubs 3-0. So we expect the Dodgers to go on to the World Series, hopefully against the Astros. And the Yankees are winning right now 1-0 as we currently speak. But we'll talk about that series and what happened next week, and then we'll talk about the World Series next week because we have one show a week. That's your news for that. Now, moving on to college football, we'll get into college basketball more than the upcoming weeks. But college football, oh my goodness, what a weekend! We saw 3 undefeated teams go down, and then one team who was ranked in the top 10 go down.
Yeah.
We saw Auburn lose in that tough game to LSU. Go Tigers! 27-23 with a punt return by DJ Chark, who could be a potential All-American for LSU. He's a great wide receiver. And then we saw some teams barely win, but then we saw Clemson go down Friday night against Syracuse. And I thought Syracuse had a really good passing attack, and the Clemson secondary definitely got tested in this game to the max, and they lost. We saw Washington State go down to who? Who's their name? Oh, Cal. At Cal, 37-3. What? I've never seen that before. Much less a team losing to a team like that. What about by 5 touchdowns? What the heck? And then we saw Washington go down to the likes of an Arizona State team.
Oh, did they really?
Yes, who finished in the bottom 5 last year in total defense. They lost 13-7.
Wow.
Now Arizona State has a really good offense, but when you think of it, low scoring like that, I mean, much less losing to Arizona State, it's the way they lost. They were shut out for 3.5 quarters. I don't get it. Don't get it. And Washington's offense is really good too. That's what I don't get. If we're talking about Michigan's offense, which I'll get into later, that's something different. But we're talking about Washington's offense, who before this game was, top 10 in scoring, averaging about 46.5 points a game. That was crazy. But when you have an upset, like I said earlier this year, when you have an upset, the likelihood of it happening on a Thursday or Friday is greater than a Saturday. It's hard to get teams to focus in on Thursday and Friday night games. So if you ever see a highly ranked team playing against a decent team, especially on the road on a Thursday night game coming off a tough win the Saturday before, look for it to be close. I'm not saying it will happen, but look for it to be close, ugly type game.
Yeah.
Man, and then I couldn't believe all the upsets. Have you ever seen a weekend like that before?
I have, but I don't remember it.
You have, but you don't remember it? It's like, I probably have.
Yeah.
What do you think of Wisconsin this year?
Wisconsin's doing pretty well. I mean, they're undefeated right now, first in the Big Ten and Big Ten West. But their schedule is really not that good.
Right, and they're going to keep climbing up in the polls because they probably won't lose. But as we look at their schedule currently, I mean, right now they only play one ranked team right now, and that's Michigan. And Michigan may not even be ranked when they play Michigan. So right now, the only teams that match up well against Wisconsin are Iowa, Michigan, maybe possibly at Indiana, coming off a tough game, maybe possibly, or just the likelihood of them being ready week in and week out decreases as the season goes along because they're going to have distractions as the season goes along. So there's a chance for an upset, obviously, with Wisconsin. But how about your TCU Horned Frogs, Gage?
Go Frogs. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, they have a tough schedule coming up after Kansas.
They do.
Yeah, they got, after that, they play versus or at Iowa State, then they come home against Texas.
Which Iowa State beat Oklahoma.
At Oklahoma. Then they play at home versus Texas. Texas is a very physical team. And then they play at Oklahoma, then at Tech, and then versus Baylor. That 4-game stretch, though, there could be a loss in there. And if you guys do not lose, there could be. Yeah, the likelihood of it is very high.
It's probably most likely going to be either one of these two teams.
Yeah, it's probably either going to be at Oklahoma or Texas Tech. But I think because you guys don't have a bye week, and I know Gary Patterson does a great job of getting you guys ready.
Yeah.
But I look for Texas to possibly pull off something.
Really?
I mean, you think about it. It's between 2 road games. And I think Iowa State, I'm not saying they're going to beat you. I think you guys will beat Iowa State, but I think it'll be a tough fought game, and I think that coming off a tough road game, coming back at home, then playing Oklahoma the next week, next week at Oklahoma, that Texas game might be close. And then, of course, at Oklahoma, that would be a tough game no matter what. And then at Texas Tech, remember the last time you guys played at Texas Tech, what happened?
Yes,
Aaron
I do.
Green in the back of the end zone.
I was watching that game too.
If something like that happens again, we could be seeing some, playoff chaos.
Yeah.
But if TCU goes undefeated from this season before the Big 12 championship game, which you guys may have to play Oklahoma State again, if you guys beat Oklahoma and Oklahoma State goes undefeated from here, then it's hard to beat a good team twice in the same season.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one.
But if you guys win all those games, you guys definitely deserve a playoff spot.
We do.
And not 2 SEC teams or 2 Big Ten teams or whatever they want to argue. You guys deserve it.
We want to get revenge from, was it
2014? Yeah.
What were we? We were ranked number 3.
And dropped to 6.
Dropped to 6. And look who was in the top 4. Florida State. They replaced us.
But actually, Ohio State replaced y'all.
Oh, did?
Well, because, Florida State was undefeated. They deserved the spot. I don't care. I know they didn't win impressively in their games, but the fact is that they went undefeated in a tough conference.
Yeah.
Ohio State was the question. They didn't even play. They played for their championship game, and they won 56-0 against Wisconsin. Oh, my gosh. That's impressive.
Let's see.
And they ended up winning it all. So, they deserved it, but then, again, you guys deserved the spot more.
Yeah.
So,
wasn't it last year that Penn State went undefeated? But then yet they didn't even make the top 4.
Yeah.
And then
they had 2 losses, but
and then here's Ohio State.
They only had 1 loss in conference to Michigan at Michigan 49-10 last year, but they went to the Big Ten championship game, beat Wisconsin on a really good comeback, and they didn't make the playoffs because Ohio State, who didn't even play in the Big Ten championship game. Yeah, Heather Dinich, that analyst that keeps saying about how conference games or conference championship games are important.
Yeah.
And then she gives a reason why Ohio State made it in. It's simple as this. What's their name? Is it Ohio State? The Buckeyes? Oh yeah, aren't they one of the best teams in college football history? It's their name. That's why they got in. And then of course Alabama deserves it. Clemson deserved it.
Yeah.
But Clemson at least only had 1 loss to Pittsburgh at home by 1 point. And so but we can argue about that all day long. But this week, the 10 games. Tell me what you think of these games. Oklahoma State at Texas. What do you think of that?
That's going to be a good game. A very tough physical game.
It will be. Oklahoma State has the best offense in the nation, averaging over 610 yards per game. They're number 2 in total points per game at 48. The Texas defense is legit. They keep people in check. They kept Oklahoma in check, especially after that first half, which was ugly, like LSU's game.
After you said that, I'm probably going to have my doubts on the TCU-Texas game after you said that.
Yeah, but we'll see. I'll get into that more next week and the week after, but we'll see what happens as the season goes along. But I think this game is going to be a well-fought game, but I think Oklahoma State wins in a close one. I say that Texas does a great job, especially in the second half against their offense, but I say Oklahoma State pulls it out 31-28. I'm going to that game, but I'll be pulling for Texas. But again, I had Oklahoma State winning the Big 12 this year, so I'm kind of pulling for them too, honestly. Florida State and Louisville. What do you think of Louisville this year and the way Florida State, of course, both of them were expected to do better?
Yeah. Like what you said there. They're expected to do better. I'm still gonna have to pull Florida State on this one. To me, they're the better team. They will dominate the game, but Louisville will give them a fight.
Yeah, obviously, I think Florida State's defense is one of the best defenses in the country. Week in and week out at halftime, they'll give up about 70 yards of offense. And in the second half, they'll give up 300 because they're getting tired. And that's one thing that worries me in this game because if you're tired against Louisville, because here goes Lamar Jackson, 80 yards for a touchdown. So they can't let that kind of stuff happen. But here's the thing. The reason why they get tired is because their offense can't stay on the field because their offense isn't that good. But when you're facing a defense like Louisville's, who's averaging giving up about 388 yards per game, that's what bodes a problem for Louisville. I think this game might go in Florida State's hands. If you remember, Louisville beat them 63-20 last year. And they're playing at Florida State. And we've already seen a team, or many teams this year, who lost last year against teams, and they've coming back this year playing at home, and they ended up winning the games. I think Florida State wins the game in a tight game. I think you're looking at a 24-21 type game. I think Florida State jumps jumps up to like a 14-10 or a 14-0 lead, like real quick.
Yeah.
And then Louisville or Florida State gets tired as the game goes along, but then Florida State holds on, unlike what happened with Miami. So I think that Florida State pulls it off. How about Texas Tech and Iowa State? Iowa State at Texas Tech. What do you think this game will be like?
It's going to be another hard-fought physical game.
Yeah, this game will be tough. You have an Iowa State team who only has one loss currently in the Big 12. They're quietly a contender in the Big 12 for some reason. What was their record last year? 3-9. But last year they stayed with a lot of teams, but this year they're pulling out those games. And they only gave up about 100 yards offense at Kansas this past week. Really impressive. They won 45-0. Wow. But this last year, do you know what the score was at halftime? They played at home versus Texas Tech. Last year, they were winning 45-3 at Texas Tech, or at home versus Texas Tech. This year, they're playing at Texas Tech. They ended up winning that game last year versus Texas Tech, 66-10. One of the only teams to ever shut down Patrick Mahomes. What? 66-10? I can't believe that either. But this year, they're playing at Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is better at home than they are on the road. I look for Texas Tech and Iowa State to kind of battle this one out. Texas Tech this year has been inconsistent. They just had a tough game at West Virginia. They let them come back like I thought they would. West Virginia is a good team at home. This West Virginia team came back in the fourth quarter, outscoring them 29-0 in the last quarter in a couple minutes. Roughly. This Tech pass defense is not very good. The run defense is legit, but the pass defense isn't. Iowa State's passing offense is really good, averaging about 293 yards a game. I think Iowa State will get the job done in a close game. I think you're looking at a 35-31 game. I think a late touchdown by Iowa State gets the job done, and I think Tech is not sure of themselves right now, and Iowa State has more to play for. I mean, after this game, they got most of their tough games at home, so I think this team will battle it out. They got TCU in a couple weeks or next week, so that should be interesting at home. So I think this Iowa State team has more to play for, and I think they come away with a win, high-fought win, 35-31. Other games that are noteworthy of mentioning, I will get into the other big games later, like Notre Dame and USC, and that's the game you have to predict the score for. Yeah. How about UCF this year? Surprising. Surprising
very
everyone.
surprising.
USF was expected to do pretty good this year, and they keep climbing in the polls. Yeah, with Charlie Strong. Yeah.
To be honest, I don't think Texas was a very good fit for him, but UCF he found his
team.
He found
He found his
team.
state, to be honest, too. I mean, he was at Louisville several years ago, and he did really well over there when they had Teddy Bridgewater and those guys. Yeah. And they finished number one in defense almost every single year. One year they were really good on defense. They beat Miami in the bowl game like 33-9. But anyways, UCF guys this year ranks in the top 10 in passing and turnover margin. Very similar to Memphis, who Memphis just beat Navy, who was undefeated. This UCF team is undefeated they're playing at Navy this week. But this Navy team, they struggle against teams with a good passing game and teams who can turn the ball over and win the turnover margin. So I think UCF will dominate this game. Memphis could have won by more. They forced 6 turnovers. They had a +6 turnover margin and still only won by 3 because Navy really is a better team than Memphis. But they pulled it out. Memphis pulled it out. Good job, Memphis. But this UCF team, I think they're going to give Navy a lot of fits in this game, and I think UCF continues to go undefeated, and their winning streak continues. I don't think they have any trouble with this game. I think they win 38-21. This is even at Navy. I don't think UCF will have a problem. What do you like OU this week against K-State?
Well, coming off a loss at home against TCU
or Iowa State.
No,
OU lost to Iowa State. Is that what you mean? Oh, K-State. You're losing to TCU. I'm sorry. Okay.
Losing to TCU. No. And that too.
OU just beat Texas, so
yeah, of course.
Right.
There was really no question about that, but it was a really good game.
We had a lot of teams pull out some games too, like Miami beating Georgia Tech. I thought Georgia Tech would pull off the upset there. They almost did.
Oklahoma's okay. They're in the top 3 coming into the season. Now they're currently number 9. They're gonna play at Kansas State, like what I said. Came off a loss against TCU.
Yeah.
But I think Kansas State's going to lose this one overall. Oklahoma's the better team.
OU is
because well, one, they have a really good offense, and two, they
top
have
5 in passing
and
offense, total offense,
and two, they have an All-American quarterback, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and you know what? Their OU is top 5 in total offense and a nation best 8.57 yards per play. K-State, their record or their wins this year have been against teams with a losing record. All of them have losing records except for one, but their conference isn't really good. So I mean, yeah, I don't look for K-State to do much in this game.
Yeah,
I don't think this is the matchup for them. I don't think Oklahoma will have any trouble in this game whatsoever finding their receivers, finding their offense. Maybe K-State will find some running room against the Oklahoma defense. Has been proven to be not very good this year, but I don't think the OU defense will lose the game at all for them. I think Oklahoma has no trouble in this game. I think it's a high-scoring game. I think OU wins 45-24 at K-State, and I think they keep on rolling. Mississippi State versus Kentucky. Kentucky actually has a top 3 rush defense in the SEC, allowing only 3.5 yards per carry. That's also 10th in the nation. They're only one game. They've only won one game by more than 10 points this year. So that bodes a problem for me in picking this Kentucky team over Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Mississippi State likes to control the line of scrimmage, but I don't think they'll be able to do it in this game. But I don't think Kentucky will have the offense against a Mississippi State defense that ranks number 1 in first downs allowed in the nation. They've only allowed 72 first downs this year. That's the nation best. The Kentucky secondary is very questionable, but I think if they can keep everything in front of them, I think the Kentucky Wildcats will have a better chance of winning this game. But it's at Mississippi State, and the Kentucky passing offense is not the best. They like to control the ground game, but the Mississippi State defense is very aggressive. I don't think that the Kentucky offense will have enough to exploit the Mississippi State secondary. Mississippi State gets the job done. They win in a hard-fought game, 24-20, maybe 23-20, something like that. But you can expect Mississippi State to pull off a close one. The line says 10.5. I think it says 11 now. But I still look for Mississippi State to win this game, but not by that much. I think Kentucky will give them a run for their money. Kentucky's actually 5-1 this year, only one loss coming to Florida by 1 point. And if you watch that game, Kentucky blew the game, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, USC Notre Dame. USC at Notre Dame. This is the game you have to predict the score for. What do you think the score will be like in this game? What do you think? Who do you think will win?
I think Notre Dame will win this one. Well, even wait, are they ranked? I don't know.
They are ranked. They're ranked number 13. USC's ranked number 11.
To be honest, even though USC is a higher rank, I say Notre Dame's the better team in this one.
Notre Dame is a very good team this year. They've won every single game by a lot. The only game they lost was to 1 point on September 9th to Georgia, who's a top 3 team right now. They're number 3 currently in the nation. But they lost to Georgia by 1 point at home. I think this Notre Dame team's a better team than USC. I don't care what the rankings say. I don't care what conference. Notre Dame's an independent. USC's in the Pac-12. I don't care what conference or what year. This team for Notre Dame is a better team all around. I don't think they'll have any trouble in this game. I think USC keeps it close on the scoreboard. I say Notre Dame wins 31-21. I say they keep Sam Darnold in check. And you know what, guys? It's something that you may not know about. This Notre Dame team is, when I mean they're good, I mean they're the real deal. This is actually the first time these teams are playing since, when they're both ranked.
Yeah.
Since 2009. Notre Dame has only allowed 1 rushing touchdown this year. And Notre Dame is 5th in the nation in run offense, averaging about 308 yards per game. They're going to have a really tough They're having a really tough schedule this year. If you look at their schedule right now, they currently have at home they have number 11 USC. Then next week, and keep in mind, guys, no bye weeks. No bye weeks. Keep that in mind. versus NC State after this game at home, number 16th ranked. Then at home they play Wake Forest. Then on the road at number 8 Miami. Then at home versus Navy. Then at Stanford. If they go undefeated from this point on, they deserve a playoff spot. But then, of course, when you have a team that doesn't play in a championship game for a conference, that bodes a problem for Notre Dame because you might have a TCU team up on the rise. You also might have Oklahoma State up on the rise. Heck, you might even have Oklahoma on the rise. So you have teams like that who are competing. And heck, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if LSU wins the rest of their games, that means they would have only had one loss in conference. And let's say they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game 20-17. Then now, does LSU deserve a spot? It's going to create chaos. I believe that there should be 8 teams in the playoff, not 4. That's my belief. I will get into that as the playoff rankings come out in a couple of weeks. And I'll also give my predictions on who I think will win each conference and be in the playoff in a couple of weeks from here on out. I say Notre Dame wins 31-21 against a USC team.
And here's why. I think Notre Dame has a tougher schedule, even though they're not in a conference. They still play really good teams. But then when you look at USC, they play
a couple ranked teams so far.
A couple good teams. Stanford, I'm pretty sure they.
Yeah, they played Stanford and they won that game 45-24. But then they beat some other teams who weren't as good by less.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that. I understand they beat Utah by 1 point Utah went for 2 points at the end of the game. They held them. But I think this USC team was probably looking ahead to this Notre Dame game, so I think they'll play a little bit better in this Notre Dame game, but I still think that Notre Dame is a much better team, so I think Notre Dame, and they're playing in South Bend. If you remember last year, Notre Dame lost the last game of the season at USC by a lot. I think they're going to want revenge. Like I said earlier in the show, lots of teams want revenge after especially losing by a lot to a certain team that they hate, and I think Notre Dame's really going to want this win, and It surprised me if it's close. I think Notre Dame's going to dominate. I really do. I think this Notre Dame's legit. You know, they're one of a few teams in the nation that rank in the top 15 in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. I think this Notre Dame team is legit. San Diego State lost for the first time this past week versus Boise State by a lot. I said to Boise State that they would jump off to a quick lead, but I thought San Diego State would come back. They didn't. What do you think of San Diego State?
San Diego State, it's one of those teams that you didn't know they would come out ranked. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and then they blew the ranking. I'm surprised they blew it. But then again, you have a Boise State team who's won the conference most of the last several years, and the San Diego State team. Look, I understand that when you play against a Boise State team who's good, that the game would be close, but I don't think there's any excuse losing 31-14 like they did and allow them to jump off to a 21-0 lead like that.
Yeah,
and I think that bodes a problem for San Diego State going into a higher bowl game. That now the way they lost to a Boise State team who got killed by Virginia, and Virginia's Virginia, but they're improving this year. Virginia's actually pretty good this year, but still, I'm just not impressed with the way San Diego State lost that game. But they play versus Fresno State this week. They're playing at home. I look for them to kind of come back. But this Fresno State team's not a bad team. They're not a great team, but they're not as good as San Diego State is. I don't think they're as good because they haven't done as well against Division I teams or Power 5 teams like San Diego State has done better against. But I still think San Diego State's going to struggle in this game like they did this past game. But they're going to come out with a hard-fought win, 27-24 against Fresno State. And if you look at the schedule after this, they play at Hawaii, at San Jose State, then at home versus Nevada. So they don't have another home game until November 18th. I think they're going to want to win this home game bad. And then the last game of the season is versus a New Mexico team who has pulled off a couple of upsets already this year. But I think this San Diego State team will get the job done this week. If you look at other games this week, you have some other pretty good games, but I had to say, what do you think of Michigan this year?
To be honest, I thought they would have done better than what they're doing right now.
You know,
honestly,
Michigan coming into the season, this is about where we expected them to be, and now they're showing that their offense is not the best in the nation. Their defense is still number one in total defense. in the nation, but I don't think the offense for Michigan will do enough. The fun fact, this Michigan offense has only had 18 trips to the red zone this year, has only scored a touchdown 33% of the time, only scored 6 touchdowns in the red zone this year, 5 rushing and only 1 passing. And Penn State has the 4th best red zone defense in the nation. I think this is gonna bode a problem for Michigan. I don't think Michigan will get the job done in the red zone if they even get there. Penn State over Michigan, 17-6 is kind of what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. I say Michigan forces a turnover like late in the third quarter. I say Saquon Barkley doesn't get a lot going for the Penn State running game. And then I say Trace McSorley, the quarterback for Penn State, throws a late third quarter interception because he's getting frustrated. They can't move the ball against the Michigan defense. That turns into a field goal, 10-3, and then Penn State goes down late in the game to get a late touchdown, and then Michigan somewhere in there will get another field goal. They might get in the first half sometime, but I see a 17-6 type ball game. But since the season started, we thought that the Michigan team would be like this, and then they beat Florida like they did, and then they went into the top 10. Haven't looked impressive since then as much. They struggled against Air Force and a couple of other teams, but Indiana this past week, they struggled with that game. I look for this Penn State team to kind of run over them, and especially the stat-wise, but I think the Michigan defense will keep them in the game. They will keep Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley in check, and 17-6 could be your final score, something like that. But keep in mind, though, that Michigan has a very good freshman punt returner in Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's averaging many yards per punt return, but guys, he's a freshman, 6'2", 200. What a presence. He's very good. But if they can figure out a scheme to contain him on the punt and kickoff returns and keeping him out of third and long situations and making sure the Michigan quarterback does not throw to him, this could be a long day for the Michigan Wolverines. And unless their defense scores, I don't see Michigan scoring a lot of points. This Penn State defense is number 2 in points allowed this year so far, so this could be a big problem for Michigan. Boise State plays Wyoming this week. Wyoming's only putting up about 284 yards per game. Now, their quarterback is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. Josh Allen's real good, but he doesn't have much help. The defense is kind of a bend, not break style, but when you're consistently bending and you're not scoring on offense, you're breaking. It doesn't mean that you're breaking defensively, it just means that overall your team is breaking. Gage, I remember talking to you a few years ago about the bend not break style and how I don't like the way defense is played nowadays in college football. Mm-hmm. What is your opinion on the average defense in college football today?
To be honest, it's a little bit more, I would say, aggressive.
You think it's more aggressive?
Yeah, a little bit.
People will say that it's harder to stop the shotgun offense than it would have been, 30 or 40 years ago when teams just ran up the middle for 3 yards per carry. And I get it that it's harder to defend, but it's, in my opinion, it's not harder to defend if you just get fundamentally sound and you're disciplined. But in today's world, that's not going to happen. You're not going to have as many disciplined teams. It seems as if it's harder to be disciplined with all the social media and the distractions. And you're probably thinking, well, Connor, you're part of the reason why you have your own, we have our talk show here, right? And we're talking about teams. But what I'm trying to talk about is, you have people on social media commenting on certain teams, and they'll look at that and say, hey, these people think that we're good. That means we're going to win this game. Hey, I'm feeling better about ourselves. It doesn't mean that you have to try less or try harder. It means that you have to block out everything that's trying to, or not even trying to, but everything that's in the world that's commenting about you. You have to ignore that and play your game and improve week by week. And the only team that does that consistently the last several years is Alabama, and look at their results. Mm-hmm. And then Dabo Swinney had a class a few years ago that was the number 1 class in the nation, and the result was a great team for a couple of years. And then now they're showing that, they lost a lot of good players, and now they're struggling a little bit, Clemson. But I still think this Clemson team's a good team. They're just not as good as I think they were last year. What do you think of Clemson this year so far?
Oh, Clemson. I thought they would be better than what they were, or than what they are this year. They're currently number 7. They came off an emotional loss against Syracuse. I think, to be honest, they should at least be in the top 5. Like Like I know Wisconsin is undefeated, but who has the tougher schedule? It's going to be Clemson.
I agree with that, but I agree with the schedule, the tough schedule part, but I don't agree that they should be ranked higher than Wisconsin. I mean, obviously, you can't break the top 4 right now. You cannot break Alabama, Penn State, Georgia, TCU. But Wisconsin, you can argue that, hey, they haven't played anyone tough. Well, yeah, you can argue that. But you know what? You can also argue that Clemson could have lost against Auburn. And then this could be their second loss.
Yeah.
And then you could also argue that they could be ranked higher than Ohio State. I agree with that part. But I think they should be ranked higher than Ohio State. That's it. But 6, going up one more ranking, that won't hurt or kill them right now. It won't help them either in any fashion. But I think Clemson will lose one more game for the regular season. I had them going 10-2 this year. I think Miami has another couple losses coming. They haven't looked really impressive. They're just pulling out their games. A top 10 team doesn't pull out their games. They win their games, like Penn State and Alabama and Georgia and TCU have been doing so far this year. And, Wisconsin's been winning their games, but they've had a couple close games. It's different when you have a close game against the number 2 ranked team in the nation, when you're number 3 or 4 or 1, whatever it may be, than when you're playing against a Purdue team who's 0-2 against good teams. You know what I'm trying to say? And I know Purdue can challenge anybody, but whoopie-doo, we can get a lot of teams out there who can say, hey, we can challenge them, but can you win? Can Clemson win, or do they barely win, or do they not look impressive, or do they lose a close game against a good team that's not supposed to be a good team but really is? So you can argue about this, but this is why I think you should have 8 teams in the playoff. Gage, how many teams do you think should be in the playoff?
At least 10. For me, the top 10 should at least be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and number 1 and 2 get a bye or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they're putting different sides if you want to look at it like that. Okay.
So it's more evenly matched than having 4 games to determine.
Well, 3 games because it'd be
3
2
games.
semis in the final.
Yeah.
But 4 teams.
Yeah. But I agree with you. There should be more teams to make it an actual playoff team. So you're looking at if currently we have the top 10 teams right now, they do their thing. They place
in the top 10.
Yeah.
And so let's say of those 10 teams, 5 of them right in the Power 5 conferences, right? 5 of them win their conference.
Yeah.
Then you have let's say 2 outsiders.
Yeah.
So give an example of the outsiders.
Notre Dame.
Okay.
And Washington State.
Okay, so Washington State. So you're saying that maybe Washington would win the Pac-12?
Yes.
And then Washington State comes in second, barely behind them, okay?
Yeah.
And then USC finishes third, let's say, okay? So you have a Washington State team who has, 1 or 2 losses on the year? Mm-hmm. And they're both against, one is against a bad team, then the other one's against a good team, Washington, let's say. Okay, and then, so that would be 7 teams, right? Yeah. Who would be the other 3 teams, possibly?
Michigan.
Uh-huh.
For me. Let's see. North Carolina State.
Okay.
And Michigan.
But you already said Michigan. So Michigan, North Carolina State.
And Oklahoma.
So Oklahoma. Right. So our point is that if you had, let's say we should get into this more a couple weeks from now, but let's say if you had Alabama win the SEC, then Georgia finishes with 1 loss, which is the SEC championship.
Yeah.
Arguably they should be in too. And then you had Penn State.
Yes.
And then maybe you could have Ohio State. Considering, I don't think Michigan will be the team, but if you had Ohio State, so now you have 4 teams. You have Alabama, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State. Then what about if you had a team let's say USF, who goes undefeated, and their only close games against a UCF team who's undefeated now, and that's the only loss. So UCF would end up with 1 loss. Let's say USF's and UCF's only close game was a 3-point win for USF 23-20, last game of the season. And USF blows everyone else away, and their quarterback finishes 4th in the Heisman race. Do they deserve to go if you had 10 teams?
Yes.
Right. I think this is why you should have 8 or 10 teams.
Yeah.
I think 8 would be the perfect number, but I can see where you're going with 10 too. For 1 and 2 gets a bye, but I don't believe in that because I think you should have 8 or maybe 12 teams.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that someone should get a bye in the playoff. They've already had 2 bye weeks, you know. I don't, and then of course you get a break between your championship game for your conference and the playoffs. Not to mention you get 2 bye weeks and a break between your last game of the season and a conference, depending on what conference you're in for your conference championship. Some conferences get a break, some of those don't. So But I agree, there should be more teams. But last game that we'll go over here. Or go ahead.
It doesn't seem right to only have
4 teams.
6 teams actually.
Well, for the New Year's, 6 games, but 4 teams in the playoffs. Teams.
It's like you choose the best teams, which are top 4, obviously, and you
of course,
two
top 4, or top 4 who they think.
Top 4 who they think.
Yeah,
our opinion doesn't matter.
Right.
But like they should at least like have more teams. It would. To be honest, it'll be a much more like
competitive,
and much more.
And I think coaches would be more into it, like Mike Leach, for Washington State,
and also
Nick Saban.
That could be a really good ESPN thing.
Yeah, like an article.
Yeah,
there should be 8 teams.
Like for March Madness, Bowl Mania, that should be the college playoff pick'em. That should be one of those.
Well, I mean, they do have that.
Well, I mean, yeah, but added more teams.
Oh,
and then choose who you want to play.
So they basically do that with making a bracket. But.
So basically, you can have, say your favorite team is Oklahoma State, currently number 10. They could move up and play.
Are you saying that? 14. Are you saying that we should take a vote in the United States and who we think should be up there?
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
kind of.
We kind of do that already in a sense, but then of course the playoff committee gets the last word, and that's where it's kind of questionable. Do you remember last year when they got that guy to come on the ESPN? And he was kind of shaking with the papers. He almost looked nervous when they were having him describe about why Ohio State got in and not Penn State.
Yeah.
He almost looked nervous to be up there. So, that's kind of fishy in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think last game that we'll go over, and then we'll end our show for this week. Boise State against Wyoming. This Wyoming team does not do too well when they face a tough team. You know, again, like I was saying earlier, Josh Allen's a really good quarterback, but whenever he faces a good defense, it's a different story. Here's what he does when he faces a good team. When they lost to Iowa 24-3, he went 23 of 40 for 174 yards and 2 interceptions. And against Oregon, they lost 49-13. He went 9 for 24 for 64 yards and an interception.
Yeah.
Not impressive. I don't think this game will get it'll get a little easier against Boise State, but not much easier. I think Boise State kind of rolls along with a 35-17 win. Yeah, so I'll go over the pick'ems again, and that will be it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Panther Nation. Oklahoma State 31, Texas 28, Florida State 24, Louisville 21. Iowa State at Texas Tech pulls off the upset. That's my upset pick of the week. I think it could happen, but we'll see. Close game though. 27-24 Iowa State wins. UCF no problem against Navy, 31-17 final score. OU against K-State, no problem, 45-24 final score. Mississippi State earns a tough one against Kentucky, 23-20. Penn State, tough defensive battle, but Penn State's the better team, 17-6 at home. This is a whiteout game, which is when everyone dresses up in white. Remember the last time that happened? They beat Ohio State and pulled off the upset.
Yeah.
So, and then Notre Dame at home versus USC. Notre Dame wins 31-21. That's the game you have to predict the score for. Boise State rolls along against Wyoming, 35-17. Boise State beats Wyoming. And then San Diego State earns a tough win against Fresno State, 28-24. Those are my final scores, and this is your final show for this week if you want to look at it like that. For now, we're Panther Nation. I'm Connor Hibbett.
And I'm Gage Laswell.
And this is Panther Nation, and have a great week, Pascal.